Nobody tells you this part when you start a business. They talk about freedom. They talk about control. They talk about being your own boss. Nobody talks about how quiet it gets. And not the peaceful kind of quiet, the heavy kind, the kind where everyone's gone home. The lights are still on, and you're sitting there realizing you don't actually have anyone you can say the real stuff to. That's the part nobody puts in the Instagram caption because it doesn't look good next to the laptop and a latte. The first thing you learn, usually way later than you should, is this: you don't get to vent down. You can't unload on your employees, even when they mess something up, even when they complain, even when they bring you problems you didn't create but now somehow own. You nod, you listen, you say, yeah, we'll figure it out, and then you carry it. You also don't get to vent up. Clients don't care how stressed you are. They don't care about payroll. They don't care that 3 people called in sick or your vendor just raised prices again. They care about deadlines. They care about results. They care about what you promised. So you smile. You say no problem. And then you carry that too. Friends try. I'll give them that. But unless they own a business, they don't really get it. They say things like, can't you just take a day off? Or have you tried charging more? Or my personal favorite, maybe you're overthinking it. Yeah. And maybe none of that helps when you're the one who knows exactly what happens if this thing doesn't work. That's the loneliness nobody warns you about. And if this is hitting you right now, it's not because you're weak, it's because you're an owner. Here's what makes it different. You're not just responsible for yourself anymore. You're responsible for outcomes. Payroll doesn't care how motivated you feel. Vendors don't care if you had a rough week. The bank definitely doesn't care. Everything lands in the same place, on you. So you learn how to contain it. You learn how to walk into the building like everything normal, even when your stomach is tight and your brain is quietly running worst case scenarios in the background. You answer questions like you slept. You make decisions like you're sure. You reassure people while doing math in your head. It's not weakness, that's ownership, and it's exhausting. Most mornings, you don't check email first. You don't check Slack. You don't check notifications. You check the bank account because that one number decides how confident you're allowed to be that day. If it looks good, you breathe a little easier. If it doesn't, your chest tightens and suddenly everything feels louder. That's not because you're bad at business. It's because uncertainty is heavy. Stress doesn't come from work. Stress comes from not knowing if the work will be enough. And the worst part is you can't say it out loud. Hey, I'm not totally sure we're okay. You're the adult in the room, so you carry it. Here's another thing nobody likes to say. Your employees will never feel this pressure the way you do. That's not an insult. That's not arrogance. That's reality. They can leave. You can't. If they have a bad day, they go home. If you have a bad month, it follows you everywhere. That doesn't make them lazy. It doesn't make you superior. It just means the weight is different. And where a lot of owners screw this up is expecting employees to carry owner-level stress. They won't. They shouldn't. If they did, they'd be owners too. Once you accept that, you stop waiting for motivation to come from other people. And you start realizing this thing moves or dies based on what you do. Here's where the loneliness gets dangerous. When pressure builds, most owners don't stop working. They just stop doing the right work. They plan, they reorganize, they tweak the website, they convince themselves they're getting ready. I've done this more times than I want to admit. At Perch Merch, when sales felt tight, I didn't always jump straight into outreach. I'd convince myself the site needed one more tweak, or the product list needed reorganized, or the catalog needed updating. And if I'm being honest, that wasn't strategy, that was avoidance. Because starting conversations feels personal. Sales feel personal. Follow-up feels personal. Rejection hurts more when payroll is attached to it. So you stay busy, and the loneliness gets louder. Here's the truth most don't want to hear. Anxiety loves an unstructured calendar. When your days are vague, your brain fills the gaps with fear. That's why motivation doesn't fix this. That's why mindset alone doesn't work. What actually works is movement you don't have to negotiate with yourself about. Rules, constraints, daily execution. Not because you're broken, because you're human. This is where things usually start to change. Not into hype, not into grind harder, into structure. Because the moment you give your day rules, the loneliness loses its grip. You stop asking, what should I do today? And start asking, did I do the thing? That's where clarity comes from. That's where confidence comes from. Motivation is unreliable. Inspiration is inconsistent. Confidence usually shows up after action, not before it. If motivation worked, most business owners wouldn't struggle. People would just wake up ready. That's not how this works. Owners don't need motivation. They need rules. Rules remove decision making. Rules quiet the noise. Rules tell you what to do when your brain is tired and your emotions are loud. So let's talk about marketing. Not the Instagram version, not ads, not funnels, not brand awareness. I'm talking about the kind of marketing that actually makes your chest loosen a little. Conversations, real ones. When things feel tight at Perch Merch, I don't run to Canva. I start conversations. 10 semi warm outreaches a day. Not because it's sexy, not because it's fun, because it works when everything else feels unstable. And people overthink what semi warm means. It's someone you've talked to before, someone you're connected to, someone who knows your name, someone who wouldn't be shocked to hear from you. That's it. No scripts, no pressure, no pitch on message one. Just, hey, thought of you, quick check in, wanted to reconnect. You're not asking for a sale. You're starting a conversation, and conversations create momentum. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence quiets fear. I've had days where 8 out of 10 people didn't respond. I've had follow-ups where I thought, okay, I definitely annoyed them. And then 2 weeks later, that same person places a 5-figure order for corporate merch. Not because I was clever, because I stayed visible. Sales isn't a slot machine, it's farming. You plant seeds, you water them, you don't yell at the dirt on day 2. The next shift that changed everything for me was visibility. Not a CRM I never opened, not a spreadsheet I forget exists. I needed something I couldn't ignore. That's why I use a 25 open board. 25 active conversations, real people, real companies, real follow-up. If it's not on the board, it's not real. 5 conversations feels fragile. 1 no and your mood tanks. 25 spreads the pressure. You stop obsessing over one reply. You stop tying your emotional state to one outcome. You're not desperate, you're engaged. And that changes how you show up everywhere. This isn't about being busy. It's about pressure distribution. When all your hope is tied to one prospect, every silence feels personal. When you've got 25 conversations moving, silence is just part of the process. That's emotional freedom. Another thing that actually changed my nervous system was big clients. Small orders feel productive, but they don't buy peace. They buy busyness. At Perch Merch, the effort to land a $500 order and a $50,000 order is shockingly similar. Same conversations, same follow-up, same energy, different outcome. Big clients create predictability. Predictability lets you breathe. And I want to be clear about something because this matters. This channel exists because I'm a business coach. This is the free version. This is me giving you the advice I wish someone had given me when things felt heavy and confusing and way more lonely than I expected. But advice without accountability doesn't change much. I know that because I tried to do everything alone for a long time. If you want structure, if you want someone in your corner, if you want to be held to the work instead of just thinking about it, that's what my coaching is for. That's why I built $0 coaching. If coaching feels too big of a step right now, that's exactly why I made the 30-day Jumpstart. It's $29 because I wanted there to be no excuse not to start. It's structure, it's guardrails. It's someone finally saying, this is the work today, do it. And I'm going to be blunt. If sales are slow, this is your job right now. No delegating, no waiting, not hoping. No one is coming to save your business. And once you accept that, something weird happens. The loneliness gets quieter, not because it disappears, but because you're moving forward anyway. Owning a business will always be lonely in some ways. That part does not go away. But loneliness with direction is manageable. Loneliness without direction is crushing. Nobody warned you how lonely this gets. They also didn't warn you that nobody is coming to rescue you. That's not pessimism, that's power. Because once you stop waiting, things start moving. You already know what to do. Start today.